Today, I want to talk to you guys about pacing. We have had such a fun, whimsical Gemini season, and there's been a lot of activity and buzz and new information coming into the chat, which can be very exciting. And I think we also have to understand that it's not the full picture just yet, because we have been in Mercury pre-shadow for a lot of this Gemini season. And so moving into Cancer season, where Mercury will take its retrograde in the sign of Cancer, we're arriving at a little bit of a stop. And for some of us, it can feel like the universe is blocking us, especially when I think about how at the end of this Mercury retrograde, Mercury won't be exactly squaring Saturn, but it will be within like 2 degrees or so, which is a pretty tight orb. And especially with Saturn at that point, that's also going to be moving very slow, preparing to take its retrograde. It's going to feel like that tension between just wanting to start new projects, wanting to turn a new leaf, wanting to be in a completely different lifestyle, but feeling like things are just not that easy yet, right? And it doesn't take away from the power and the magic that we have within ourselves to create something out of nothing and to create new opportunities. But it does feel like not so fast, you know? And Saturn checks us sometimes to punish us, but just like a parent punishing a child, it's for a good reason. It's to teach us so we don't repeat the same mistakes. And for some of us, we might be so inspired with some of the new ideas and the new thread lines and the new beginnings that have been happening that we're ready to just kind of jump off the springboard and go, go, go. But in doing that, we might miss out on a deeper kind of reason behind why we are doing what we are doing. And that's how things can become very ego driven, and they can become very superficial and surface level. And that's the opposite of what this Cancer season, and especially the Mercury retrograde in Cancer, wants us to be at this time, right? There's a very deep level of thinking and feeling that we're able to access with these Cancerian tides. And sometimes it can be overwhelming, like a tidal wave of emotions. But there's also a whole lot of power that exists within cardinal water. Cardinal water is gestation. It's where things are really born and incubated, and where they really have a chance to take on a completely new form. There's a lot of shapeshifter energy with this Mercury retrograde in Cancer. And I think we have to see that ultimately we don't have to be this identity that we've performed for so long if it just doesn't feel right anymore. And there's this invitation back into truly what's at the source of things before we can fully bloom in public and show that off. And I think there is a desire to not just exist in this like private space that Cancer season invites us into. With all of the Leo energy going on, we also feel that drive to be seen and to be noticed and to be recognized for the hard work we've been putting in. And especially when it comes to like our spiritual journey and how we've been doing our own emotional labor and really looking after ourselves and nurturing our gardens, it can feel frustrating when we feel like the outside world doesn't see how much we've really been in deep reflection mode, which is, it's work to do that, right? It's easy to just kind of be like 1, 2, 1, 2 and go about your daily business without really putting much thought or intentionality into things. But when we start really thinking about them on a deeper level, we uncover all of these nuances and these catch-22s, and that whole tangled web of thinking can sometimes scare us away from going too deep. And I think with this Mercury retrograde, it's saying, don't shy away from that. Lean into that, because leaning into it is how you're going to crack the code. It's how you're going to discover the missing key because you have all of this new information, you have all of these new circumstances even in your life, but it still feels like there's this kind of like key moment or tipping point that we're anticipating. And a part of this isn't just about doing the deep dive, it's also about things externally that are shifting without us expecting them to shift. And that unexpected, uncanny energy comes from this Mars-Uranus conjunction in Gemini, which is the first Mars-Uranus conjunction in this sign since Uranus has fully made its ingress into Gemini. So it can feel chaotic with some of these things that might happen that are beyond our control, beyond what we even realize is possible to happen, or what we were thinking is going to happen next. It's like, don't even try to look too far into what this next week and a half is going to have in store, because you might be in a completely different paradigm by next week, just with the things that happen. And sure, they might challenge you, they might throw you off, they might force you to make a new plan. And I think that we have to see any rearrangements right now as something that's clearing the way for something much deeper to be brought out of us, rather than cursing, like, oh, why did this have to happen? Like, and it's normal to have human emotions and reactions to things, but I think it's also important for us to not have a knee-jerk reaction and not just like pop off verbally if something doesn't go according to plan, because of course we sometimes want to blame. We want to point the finger. We want something to blame for the reason why things didn't work out the way we had hoped. And I think it's really important for us to channel our rage or upset into creativity, into finding new solutions. And there's a lot of creative potential right now. With the Mercury retrograde in Cancer, we might be reviewing our creative choices in the past. And not just creative choices, but also relationship choices, like who we have chosen to be loyal to, our alliances, what we have chosen to use to build as our nest, right? Like the resources we've had available to us and what we've done with them, what we've constructed out of them, how we've created our sense of home and stability and family, even if it's not family biologically, but chosen family, all of these things, right, that have to do with creature comforts. That's what we're going to be thinking about, and where we might need to invite in more stability or more predictability, even like not have so much of a roller coaster ride. And I think that Saturn is really what challenges us with that, especially toward the end of the retrograde. On July 23rd, Mercury will be stationing direct, and around that time Saturn is also stationing retrograde. So there's this very slow kind of square off, like both of them are dragging their feet, and Saturn is saying to us, not so fast. You have all these creative ideas, you have all these things that you want to birth and bring forward into the world. This could even be having children, creating your own branch of the family tree, right? This could be the desire to want to be married, to be in this kind of like cozy nest, family, love kind of, vibe. And if you're not at that stage of life, or that's not really something you're thinking about, this can also be metaphoric, like I mentioned, like the chosen family, like who we're bringing into our closest, most intimate space. And seeing the harm that can be caused when we don't make the right choices in that way, or the harm that can come about when we suppress our creative life force and we put creativity on the back burner, or we even put like family on the back burner. We put these things that don't seem to be productive or part of like productivity optimization kind of culture. Sometimes we just decide that it's not that important. It's not going to pay the bills. It's not going to elevate us in a certain way. And that's where I think we can get very lost in life and very disillusioned, because even when we do accomplish the things that we want, it still feels like we don't really have what we want. And so I think Saturn is really showing us some tough love with this, right? Like maybe there is a need to make do with what we have more than we actually do. Maybe there's a need to appreciate and be grateful for the relationships in our lives rather than always focusing on the limitations of those relationships or which relationships haven't fallen into place yet. Sometimes we get so hyper focused on the fact that, hey, I haven't found a romantic partner yet. I don't have a best friend. I don't have a business partner yet. I don't have my future children yet. I don't have whatever it is. It's so easy to just always focus on what you don't have yet. And I feel like right now, it's not that we have to abandon those desires, but I think we are being asked to detach from them a bit. Capricorn knows how to practice the law of detachment, and that's something I think Cancer can struggle with more so, because Cancer is very connected to everything and feels everything, right? So this full moon being at the opposite end of things is shining light on the fact that sometimes to get what we want, we need to stop feeling that want so intensely, and we need to cool it off a little bit, and we need to just kind of accept that sometimes the only remedy for something to happen is a little more time. It's a little bit more patience, right? And boy, is that a difficult thing for Saturn and Aries to understand too, right? And yet Saturn demands time. Saturn demands that things be given a due process. So that's where I think we're in for a little bit of a mind, because it feels like, okay, well, I know that things take time, but I feel like I'm right there. And I feel like I'm right on the brink. And I feel like if I just had this secret code, or I just knew exactly what to do, that this whole thing could take a 180 and it could go my way, right? And it's not that that's not true, right? That could actually be bingo, you're right on the money. But sometimes it's like we then hyper fixate on what that one thing is, or what that one change is, or what exactly that one plan that we need to follow and do. And we get so attached and obsessed with seeing the results through what we think is the right way. And we're actually limiting other possibilities that are trying to make themselves available. So don't sleep on things that feel a little bit out there. Don't sleep on things that you haven't tried before. I do feel that this is a good time to get a little bit experimental. And maybe that's part of the challenge, because we feel like, well, if I'm too experimental, then I'm going to veer off course and then I'm not going to get to where I've been trying to go. Sure, everything in moderation. Like we can't swing too far the other way either. And that's kind of what squares, oppositions, any full moon is an opposition, right? Between the sun and the moon. So any full moon is asking us to rectify two extremes. And I think that right now we have Saturn that's also participating in this conversation, that's part of this T-square. And it's just the beginning of that conversation, really, because like I said, of that Mercury station next month, about a month from now, after the retrograde, that's when Saturn is gonna, again, it's like these same lessons are gonna be here, right? So pay attention to the limitations you're experiencing right now. You might gain some new insight on what exactly you need to do to break past those things. And you might also gain some insight on why those limitations are existing, and you might make peace with it, right? But there's definitely more to the story, and more for us to learn throughout this next month in terms of testing the limits and pushing the boundaries. Not in a way that's like crossing boundaries from a place of disrespect, but like sometimes we get so focused on boundaries and protecting our peace and all of the stuff that we then isolate, or we then miss out on being out in the world and potentially, meeting someone that's life changing for us, or coming across some sort of opportunity that really changes the course of things, because we're so obsessed with like being emotionally safe. But then it can make us actually not as emotionally safe as we feel like we are, right? So a lot of this energy is kind of stretching us right now, because there is a part of us that we do need to protect things. We do need to have a solid sense of like, okay, this is mine. I'm taking ownership of it. I'm going to take care of it. I'm not going to let any harm come to it. Capricorn has that protective mother bear kind of instinct. And of course, Cancer has that too. They are opposite signs, but they share so much in common. And the more I think we focus on what's in common between Cancer and Capricorn, for me, it comes down to strategy, right? And protective instincts, how to protect what's rightfully yours, and in doing so, how you can continue to progress forward in life, whether that be progressing in like a public career way or progress forward in like an emotional, spiritual evolution kind of way. Capricorn and Cancer really propel us forward in ways that feel like we have to fulfill some sort of mission or destiny. And a lot of times it can connect to our family legacy, what our generational karmic lot is, and how we're working to resolve things that have been difficult, like generational curses, how we're also bringing in new generational blessings, how we're healing the bloodline. And this can happen in so many ways, right? It's not just about work or about family life. It's really just how we structure our lives in general, and how that's a reflection of the progress that we're making within our lineage. So we might feel like the pressure's on under this full moon. Capricorn does apply a little bit of pressure on us sometimes, because we realize that we do need to show up. We do need to have some sort of accolades. We do need to have something to show for how we have spent our time here on Earth. And I think some of us might be having a little bit of panic right now. Like, what if it's not enough, what I've done? And that's a real fear. I think that while it's important to unhook from being overly like productive all the time, it's also a valid question, because I think about the parable of the sowers, is it? Where the guy gives his servants like some seeds or something, and some of them go out and they do a good job and they invest and they bear fruits, and then one of them just doesn't do anything. And he's the loser at the end of the day, because he got lackadaisical, he procrastinated, he didn't have a strategy or a plan for how to grow things. And that is an important part of life, right? As much as I unsubscribe from the Matrix and the rat race, there's still something about the marathon that we need to wake up and attune ourselves into and realize, hey, this is what I'm working toward. This is what I'm actively building. This is how I'm using my time. And sometimes all of our time could be taken and we could be super busy and think that we're working so hard. But when we really take a step back, we realize that we're not actually building the life we're meant to build here. And so that's where, yes, this Mercury retrograde can hit home in a way that feels heavy, in a way that's life-changing, in a way that forces us to make some big internal decisions even before we're ready to announce them to the world. I think we're kind of sitting at this like reality checkpoint with Saturn, especially Saturn being the ruler of this full moon. It's like, hey, like you say you want this, but then on the other hand, this is what you do. And those things don't really line up. So you got to put your money where your mouth is. That is something Capricorn always reminds us of. We need to stay invested with what we're thinking about, with what we're wanting, with what we're talking about, because otherwise it will drive you mad, right? It's just talking and talking, and then nothing ever happens or gets done. Like, we've all been there before. We've seen that in other people, and it's so frustrating because it feels like such an energy drain where we use the magic of our imagination and our intellect to create this vision and come up with these ideas, and then when they don't happen in the 3D, it makes us feel like powerless. It makes us feel like we've just wasted something that has the potential, and maybe someone else will come along and have the same idea and actually make it happen, and then we'll feel even worse, right? So that's the thing about Saturn, is like it can be a little bit like wah wah like that, and sometimes it's a tough love kind of message, but it's also what we need to hear. And it's a reminder that we can also build and construct things from a place of gentleness and care and nurturing. And that's the Cancer side of things. It doesn't just have to be coming from the top down, like you have to do this because I say so, right? Like the shadow toxic side of Capricorn can be like that. But I think that what we're learning right now is that the authority, the discipline can come from this place of actual true love and care. Like a parent doesn't punish their child because they want the worst for them and they don't care about them. They punish their child because they want them to do better for themselves. They want them to learn certain things and instill certain values that they are going to need moving forward, right? So discipline comes from a place of love. And I'm also reminded of the Bible verse, love is patient, love is kind, love does not keep a record of wrong. We are being asked in this Mercury retrograde to really let it out. The drainage thing I talked about, I think in the last episode or the episode before, is such a real thing. Like needing to cry it out, needing to let go of the resentment, the sticky emotions that we have. It's not that we can't always like change the way we feel about things, but we can process the way that we feel and continue to process it until it feels like, okay, I chewed on that and digested it emotionally, and I'll never forget what I had to go through to feel that all, but you know, I'm not in that same place anymore that I once was. So this is a good time to kind of tie up some loose ends. Like if this is a time where you feel like you do need to part ways or just not be as close to certain people or certain environments anymore, it's a good pivot point. And it, again, like I said with the discipline thing, like it doesn't have to come from this place of like resentment or pettiness or like holier than thou energy. It can just be as simple as expressing what you feel and letting go of how that's going to be received. Because people are not always going to understand our individual emotional realities. People are not going to have the same values that we have all the time. And I think we waste a lot of effort sometimes in trying to explain ourselves or trying to witness to people, right? And I use that term as a Christian woman, not in a way of saying you should never witness to people in terms of the love of God. But sometimes if people are not ready to hear that message, whether it be related to faith stuff or just in general, then you're kind of wasting your breath, right? Like you're not, it's like there has to be like a mutual openness. And that's where Saturn, I think, might very much like kind of show us where there's blockages in the pipes. And some of those pipes might not be our own, right? And so I think that's where we have to be okay with pivoting and just like changing the nature of the conversations or the interactions and not trying to force our own personal ideas, beliefs, agenda, perspective, even if we have the right perspective, but like allowing other people to come to those realizations on their own, right? And again, Saturn says that time heals all. Time reveals all as well. And so maybe some of us feel a little weird right now because we feel like we kind of have to wait for something to click outside of us, that we've done everything we can to get it off our chest, and now we're just kind of waiting. Or like we figured out what it is we have to do next for our plan, but we're still kind of waiting on the consistency piece to really gel together. And that's where I think we're challenged right now to keep showing up even on the days that we don't feel like it. Because think about it, Cancer can be very much based on how we feel. And that's where I think we have to be careful in this Mercury retrograde, that we find a rhythm, right? Like obviously with any Mercury retrograde, the normal routine and the way that you do things, it can be thrown off a little bit. Like whether it's like, oh, I hit traffic in my commute and I wasn't expecting that, like one example, or like, oh, like my laptop broke down or my car broke down. Those are like typical Mercury retrograde thread lines. And even on the days where things like that happen, I think this Mercury retrograde is saying, hey, like, it doesn't matter what cards you got dealt today. Like, did you feed yourself? Did you take care of yourself today? Did you talk to God today? You know, like, there are simple, basic things that, yeah, they have to do with like physical self-care, but it's really more so like the source of it is like watering your soul, nurturing your soul. And when your soul stays watered and it stays like in flow and connected, that's when you can truly start to help other people. It's when your cup is empty, when you're not tending to your soul's needs, and you're also therefore ignoring your intuition. It doesn't matter how much you overextend yourself and you try to be the hero or you try to be the leader. It's just not going to work, right? It's like, it's that simple saying of like, you have to put your own oxygen mask on first. So I think this Mercury retrograde will show us ways in which we need to prioritize our own healing more, and also ways in which sometimes we isolate in that a little bit too much. Like, we focus so much on like, I need to be good, like I need to protect my peace, and then we end up actually in a worse situation because we forget the healing properties of community, and we forget that, hey, just like I'm able to fill my own cup, sometimes my cup runs dry, and the only other option is to lean on outside support for someone that I trust and love to fill my cup to get me back on my feet. And there's nothing wrong with asking for a little bit of help. So if you're hitting these roadblocks with Saturn on this full moon and throughout the rest of this month and into July, if you really feel like you just kind of keep hitting a wall, or you just can't get past this one dilemma that you have, and it's like a stop and go thing, like every time you get your wheels, it's like you run out of gas, right? Maybe there's a need to ask God first, I would say. Ask God first for a new path, a new solution, a new way. And then from there, maybe it will click like, oh, hey, if I go ask this person or this organization, or if I go connect over here, I think that might give me the leverage that I'm looking for to get myself stuck out of the mud, right? And then it's not that you have to be codependent and keep relying on this source for help, but it might just be what you need to get back on your feet, to get the momentum started again. And this is going to be a process of discovery for us. It's not just going to be this one thing that magically happens. You know, we're going to still have to put fuel in the tank, and we're going to have to still commit to moving forward in times of celebration or in times of despair. But don't be afraid to show your vulnerability when it's safe to do so, because that's, I think, when people can actually understand better, and it makes them more willing to have compassion and empathy on you, because it's like, oh, I resonate with that. I went through something like that, or I knew someone that went through that. And it's like, okay, I see that you've been trying your best. Here, let me offer you this, right? Maybe it's just a thought. Maybe it's just an idea. Maybe it's just holding space to listen. But we never know how much we are really helping other people. Like, sometimes we underestimate our own healing abilities. So don't underestimate those in this Mercury retrograde in Cancer. I truly feel like this is a time of a lot of healing. And yeah, there might be a lot of friction or a lot of things that keep popping up that it's like, oh, well, not so fast, like that energy we talked about. But it doesn't mean that progress is not being made. It's just sometimes it's an underground sort of thing before it can really pop out. So that's what I got for you guys for this episode. I'm enjoying these chats. I feel like there's a lot we're going to be unpacking, I think, in June and July. So I think we just have to keep the faith, and also remember that sometimes it's not words alone that can really make things click, but it's experience, it's intuition, it's feeling our way through things rather than always having to think our way through things, you know? So I love you guys so much. Please take really good care of yourselves during this time. Water your gardens, drink a lot of water, take baths, swim in the ocean, focus on that cleansing, that renewal, because I feel like right now is such a time of renewal. And I do feel like, I don't know, this whole year of 2026, it's really putting us in a completely different place than where we've been in the past few years. So it should be interesting, like how I feel like it goes from like this retrograde into the eclipse season, into Venus retrograde territory, and then into Mars retrograde territory. So there's going to be like a snowball effect, you know, and I think it's kind of starting now. So that's why I think it's really, really important to observe and listen to the themes that are coming up, because they're not necessarily going away. And maybe some of you guys are like, "Ugh, why'd you have to say that?" But acceptance, right? That's how we're going to get through this retrograde, these next few weeks that are a little chaotic. We have to just accept whatever is in store, you know, and move accordingly from there. But it might not be the right time to like lock in on an exact plan right now, because it doesn't mean don't do anything. It just means like you can get the ball rolling, but expect to be pushing it for a little bit for the next month or so, okay? And then I think the eclipse energies will probably pick us up and spiral us off and move us into some other new direction. But we'll speak on that once we get to the end of the summer into August, which is when we have our eclipse season starting. So that's all, truly. I love you guys so much. And until next time, bye.